This short presentation explores the Alutiiq ethical value of Lla by Annie Passarello as prepared for her Alaska Native Studies class A240 in the spring of 2018. What is Lla? Lla is conscience. It is defined as outside, outdoors, the universe, world, weather, awareness, consciousness and wits, or common sense. More importantly, it is the home of the Great Spirit, called Lla and houses the most complex ethics-based stories. Lla, as depicted in the painting on the bottom left corner of this slide, was thought to see and hear everything. And in this example, you'll see that from the right and left eye in the center are radiating two rays. And this is just an example of how Lla was thought to see and hear everything. And it's not really much different than any of the other Christian gods or Islam or Muslim, Judaism, where we're taught in those religions that God is omnipresent. He sees and hears, everything that we do. And so in that regard, I feel that this is very similar in its depiction of the role that God played, and that it can see and hear everything. And it was almost like a gatekeeper to our actions and to some of our decision-making practices. Because if you know that everything that you see and do is being heard and watched, it kind of guides your actions so that you choose to do what is right and just. Within Lla, there are three subcategories of ethical values that we will explore. And I ask that you forgive my pronunciation of the Alutiiq language, as I am not a native speaker. The first one we're going to look at is Alak Usnukut, which means we favor sharing. And that could be sharing our knowledge through classes offered whether at the Alutiiq Museum or even within our own Alaska Native Studies class. During the course of our semester, we had an opportunity to learn from two different Alutiiq Native community members. One is an elder named Susan Malutin, who came to our class and taught us how to sew a leather pouch using a very interesting weaving stitch to design this leather pouch. And a pouch such as the ones that we designed were often carried by both men and women to hold different things when they were out about in their kayaks or traveling. And it was kind of like our modern day wallet in many ways. And another example is when Hannah Scholl came to our class to share with us some Alutiiq dances and share with us some of her artwork. And even locally within the community, the Alutiiq Museum offers many different classes that are open to natives and non-natives, such as gut sewing and salmon skin tanning, etc. And another example of we favor sharing is in subsistence hunting and fishing, as this is a community effort to provide for every member of the community. So unlike the very Western and European style of hunting and fishing, where we may hunt and fish for ourselves, in Alutiiq culture, it wasn't done that way. People didn't hunt and fish only for themselves. It was about helping the community to get through the entire winter, as those were very challenging months, very cold with scarce resources. So again, sharing benefited the entire community, as every member is needed, whether it's performing chores, whether it's passing on knowledge, but every member is needed to help the community survive. The second ethical value that we're going to explore is Sugtan Arctic, which means we trust. And this includes trusting others to keep their word. And one prime example of that is with our local Native Village Corporation of Lesnoy Incorporated. And many of the Alutiiq people on the island are shareholders in Lesnoi. And as a shareholder, they put a lot of trust in their board of directors and in their leadership. Trust that their company is going to do what is right and just in the management of their lands that were provided to them through ANSCA settlement, and that they're going to manage those lands not only to be profitable, but that those profits are then channeled into sustaining the Alutiiq culture and way of life. And that means providing for the health, safety, and education of current people and also for future generations to come. Another example within trust is trusting oneself to do what is right or just. And I found this quote that says, "The truth is that you always know the right thing to do, and the hard part is doing it." So this is where, Lla Sua, being all-seeing and all-hearing and omnipresent in the lives of the Alutiiq people, is very important, is that it's hard to do the right thing. But if you know and believe in your heart that someone is watching and listening to what you do, I think that does make it easier to do what is right for oneself and to also do what is right by others. And our third and final value that we are going to explore is Ling Akluki, which is we respect them. And this includes respect for others and the environment, the social order, and family. And an example of this is in the YouTube video that I have included a hyperlink to. And the video is produced by the television show Frontiers by KTVA. And it explored the Alutiiq Challenge, which was an exploration of the high rates of diabetes and heart disease within the native village of Usinki here on Kodiak. And I view this as respect for others in the environment and the social order and family, because with high rates of diabetes, that is also a community issue. And by respecting your body and respecting your family members and helping them through with dietary restrictions, etc., you are showing respect for them and their personal choices, but also respect for yourself and your own body. And I found that the solution, or maybe not a solution, but one of the ways they decided to tackle this growing problem of prediabetes and childhood diabetes is by creating different incentives for people to be active. And some of those incentives also included helping your elders, whether it was chopping wood for them, helping them in their smokehouse. And again, those are things that not only helped that individual elder, but also would help the greater community. Some young people chose to go on nature walks, and they were learning about plant identification. And learning that identification is also part of their own understanding of their own Alutiiq culture. And another example is respect for self and one's heritage and what that means to be a Alutiiq. And for me, one of the most wonderful examples of that is in the short film Finding Refuge by Torsten Kjeldstrand. And in the video, he followed a woman named Isabella who had been diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. And she was an Alutiiq native, and throughout her whole life, she felt great shame and embarrassment at being Alutiiq. And she was taught by her mother and grandmother to tell people that she was white instead of Alutiiq. And as such, she felt shame and inadequate, and she often used the word stupid. And it was through her volunteering at the Alutiiq Museum and her desire to embrace her culture that she decided to take this journey to Refuge Rock. And that journey was of great healing to her as she was approaching the end of her life, because it taught her to respect herself. And once she was able to respect herself, I think she was fully able to embrace her culture and her heritage and find a sense of peace and pride in who she really was. And in another example from a video we also watched in class, which was Repatriating Knowledge, Dr. Sven Hawkinson, who is the former director of the Alutiiq Museum, in the very beginning he talked about how being native in Alaska was always associated with being stupid or ignorant and less than. And how at one point he had said to himself, well, I did 8 years at Harvard. I can't possibly be that stupid. And he was right. And it didn't matter if he went to Harvard or any other university. But it was through that he found a deeper respect for himself, his capabilities, and his heritage, and what it meant for him to be Alutiiq. And so finally, Lla and Lamsua, it surrounds us. It's everything in the Alutiiq universe is alive, with a human-like conscious. From the mountains to animals and everyday objects, all things are aware of our human actions and require respectful treatment. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this final presentation.